I know, do what we do. You gotta be able to take abuse. You gotta be able to have people talk crazy about you, people disrespecting you. And you gotta smile and you gotta pretend like that's okay.
On the night of March 27, 2022, at the 94th Academy Awards, a single moment inside Hollywood's most carefully choreographed stage shattered 3 decades of carefully built image. And it all happened in under 10 seconds. You know how it went. Everyone on the planet does. But perhaps what happened next is even more shocking. Today, we'll unveil what's happening to Will Smith right now. But let's also dive into his story from the very beginning. The fateful music breakthrough. Philadelphia's hip-hop scene in the early 1980s was expanding rapidly, influenced by New York's emerging dominance, but still distinctly local in its creativity. It was here that Willard Carroll Smith Jr. met D.J. Jeffrey Towns. Together, they formed what would become D.J. Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Yes, that Will Smith. He did indeed start his career not as an actor, but as a musician. Unlike the harder-edged rap emerging in other regions, their style was clean, humorous, and narrative-driven, built for radio as much as for clubs. Their breakthrough came quickly once they signed with Jive Records. The duo's storytelling approach reached a national audience with tracks that focused on adolescence, misunderstandings, and comedic social observation rather than violence or street credibility. In 1988, they released Parents Just Don't Understand. The song's success was not just commercial, it was institutional. In 1989, it won the first-ever Grammy Award for Best Rap Performance, marking a formal recognition of rap music by the Recording Academy. The win placed Will Smith at the center of a cultural shift. Hip-hop was no longer peripheral. He was now one of its most visible ambassadors. However, success arrived faster than financial literacy. That's never a good thing. As income surged in the late 1980s, so did spending. Smith was still in his early 20s, navigating sudden wealth, luxury purchases, lifestyle expansion, and tax miscalculations accumulated into a serious financial problem. By the end of this early success period, he faced IRS debt between $2 and $3 million. This financial pressure became a turning point. Around 1990, Smith encountered a structured opportunity that would redirect his entire trajectory. NBC executives, influenced by producer Quincy Jones and the development team around a new sitcom concept, approached him with an idea built around contrast. A street-smart teenager from West Philadelphia placed into an affluent Bel-Air household. The concept would become The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but at the time, it was simply a risky television pitch aimed at capturing generational and cultural tension through comedy. Smith accepted the role, from musician to actor, just like that. Television stardom, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The IRS debt still loomed, and for Will, a steady television income offered stability that music royalties could not guarantee at that moment. Filming began in Los Angeles, but the emotional core of the show was still Philadelphia, the city he had left physically but never fully escaped psychologically. The series premiered on September 10, 1990, marking the beginning of a 6-season run that would last until May 20, 1996, totaling 148 episodes. From its earliest episodes, the show distinguished itself within the crowded landscape of early 1990s American sitcoms. While most network comedies relied heavily on domestic stability and predictable punchline structures, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air introduced a hybrid rhythm. It blended fast, street-influenced comedic timing with traditional family sitcom frameworks. The Bel-Air mansion setting functioned as a narrative pressure chamber. The Banks family represented professional success, generational wealth, and institutional discipline. In contrast, Smith's character arrived with informal logic, emotional immediacy, and social adaptability shaped by survival rather than privilege. The tension between these worlds was the structural foundation of the series. As the show progressed through its early seasons, it rapidly gained national traction. Younger audiences responded to its humor and cultural references, while older viewers engaged with its family-centered storylines. By the mid-1990s, the series had become a consistent primetime presence, anchoring NBC's Monday night lineup and expanding internationally through syndication. Its reach extended beyond the United States, contributing to Will Smith's emergence as a global television figure. What separated the show from many contemporaries was its willingness to interrupt comedy with emotional rupture. One of the most defining examples came in Season 4, during the storyline involving Will's estranged father, Lou. The episode escalates from humor into confrontation, culminating in the now iconic line, "How come he don't want me, man?" Delivered by Smith, the moment stripped away the sitcom structure and exposed a raw emotional core rarely seen in network television at the time. The performance was seen as a moment of authentic emotional disclosure. And it was relatable too. This narrative strategy became a recurring strength of the series. Episodes frequently used humor as an entry point before shifting into topics such as abandonment, racial identity, class disparity, and familial expectation. The show's writers constructed these arcs to allow Smith's performance to oscillate between comedic exaggeration and grounded vulnerability. Behind the scenes, the production operated with a level of consistency that allowed character development to accumulate over time rather than reset each episode. The Banks household, featuring characters such as Uncle Phil, Aunt Vivian, Carlton, Hillary, Ashley, and Jeffrey, formed a stable ensemble around which Smith's character functioned as a catalyst. This structural design ensured that Will's presence continuously disrupted equilibrium, creating narrative momentum without altering the foundational setting. As the series matured, it also reflected broader shifts in American television. The early 1990s marked a transition period where network sitcoms began incorporating more socially conscious themes. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was positioned at the intersection of entertainment and cultural commentary, often addressing issues such as racial profiling, economic inequality, and father-son relationships. But it did so without abandoning mainstream accessibility. By its final seasons, the show had completed a full arc of transformation for its lead character. The fictional Will Banks evolved from a displaced teenager into a young adult navigating identity within a structured environment. Simultaneously, Will Smith, the actor, transitioned from music celebrity to television anchor to emerging film prospect. The series concluded on May 20, 1996, after 6 seasons and 148 episodes due to the natural progression of its cast and narrative completion. By that point, Smith's recognition had extended far beyond television audiences. He was no longer defined by a single medium. Hollywood studios had already begun positioning him for large-scale film roles, and thus began the blockbuster era. The blockbuster era. By the mid-1990s, Will Smith's career had entered a decisive pivot point. Television had made him recognizable, but cinema demanded something different. Hollywood in this period was increasingly driven by high-concept blockbusters. Smith's transition into that system began with a single pairing: action comedy and star chemistry. In 1995, Smith co-starred in Bad Boys, directed by Michael Bay and released by Columbia Pictures. The film paired him with Martin Lawrence and placed them inside a Miami illicit substance investigation narrative built around high-speed action and comedic improvisation. Produced on a relatively modest budget compared to later blockbusters, the film grossed over $140 million worldwide, establishing Smith's viability as a lead actor in commercially driven action cinema. In 1996, he starred in Independence Day, directed by Roland Emmerich. The film was constructed as a global-scale disaster narrative, centered on an alien invasion threatening Earth's major cities. Released on July 3, 1996, it became one of the defining box office events of the decade. The film grossed over $800 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of its time. Smith's role as Captain Stephen Hiller positioned him as a central heroic figure in a story designed for mass international consumption. The following year, in 1997, Smith solidified that position with Men in Black, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld and produced by Amblin Entertainment. The film combined science fiction, procedural comedy, and buddy agent dynamics, pairing Smith with Tommy Lee Jones. It grossed over $580 million worldwide and became a franchise cornerstone. By the end of the 1990s, Smith had become a structural asset in Hollywood's global revenue system. Studios were increasingly reliant on his name to open films across multiple territories, particularly in international markets where dialogue-light spectacle and recognizable star energy mattered. The early 2000s marked a deliberate shift in role selection. Smith began pursuing biographical and emotionally demanding material. In 2001, he portrayed Muhammad Ali in Ali, directed by Michael Mann. The role required physical transformation, including significant muscle gain and boxing training to replicate Ali's fighting style and movement. The performance earned Smith his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. This strategic expansion into dramatic territory continued in 2006 with The Pursuit of Happiness, directed by Gabriele Muccino. The film was based on the real-life story of entrepreneur Chris Gardner and depicted themes of homelessness, economic instability, and paternal responsibility. The film grossed over $300 million worldwide and earned Smith his second Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. Unlike his earlier blockbuster roles, this performance relied on restraint, emotional containment, and sustained vulnerability rather than external spectacle. Across this period, Smith's commercial footprint expanded into consistent global dominance. Multiple films crossed the $100 million domestic threshold, with several exceeding $400 to $800 million worldwide. This sustained performance placed him among Hollywood's most reliable box office performers of the late 1990s and early 2000s. Parallel to his acting career, Smith developed production infrastructure through Overbrook Entertainment, which he co-founded with James Lasseter. The company allowed him to participate in project development, financing structures, and creative control beyond acting. Overbrook became a mechanism for extending his influence into casting decisions, story development, and long-term franchise planning. Smith's career profile had consolidated into three overlapping identities: global action star, critically recognized dramatic actor, and production stakeholder. This combination created a rare positioning within Hollywood's ecosystem, where few individuals maintained consistent dominance across both commercial and award-driven sectors. His films continued to perform across international markets, reinforcing the economic logic that studios attached to his casting. Everything seemed perfect. Behind the curtain, life moved on. Family life, marriage, and public image. In 1992, Will Smith married hairstylist and entrepreneur Cherie Zampino. The marriage was brief but significant. In November 1992, the couple had a son, Willard Carroll Smith III, known as Trey Smith. The relationship ended in 1995, the same year Smith was transitioning fully into Hollywood film stardom with Bad Boys. 2 years later, in December 1997, Smith entered a second marriage that would become one of the most publicly visible unions in modern entertainment. He married actress Jada Pinkett Smith in a New Year's Eve ceremony. The timing itself became symbolic. The relationship quickly evolved beyond private union into a shared public identity, where both individuals were established entertainers with independent careers, but increasingly perceived as a single cultural unit. Their family expanded with the birth of their first child together, Jaden Smith, in 1998, followed by Willow Smith in 2000. Both children would later enter the entertainment industry early. Jaden's breakthrough came through acting roles such as The Pursuit of Happiness alongside his father, while Willow emerged as a recording artist with early mainstream success. By the mid-2000s and into the 2010s, the Smith family had become a recurring subject of public fascination. Their interviews, red carpet appearances, and media ventures were widely covered. This visibility intensified as social media expanded, transforming private family dynamics into content that could be continuously analyzed, repackaged, and debated. A key turning point in the public perception of the marriage arrived on July 10, 2020, during an episode of Red Table Talk, the Facebook Watch series hosted by Jada Pinkett Smith. Sitting across from Will Smith, she confirmed that she had been in a romantic relationship with musician August Alsina. Crucially, she placed that relationship in a specific timeline. It occurred during a period when she and Will were separated, describing it as a phase when they had effectively broken up and were living independently, uncertain if their marriage would continue. In that same conversation, Jada used the word entanglement to describe the relationship, a term that immediately took on a life of its own beyond this context. Within hours of the episode airing, entanglement became a viral cultural reference, circulating across social media platforms, late-night commentary, and mainstream news coverage. The phrasing, perceived by many as vague or overly clinical, overshadowed the more concrete revelation that one of Hollywood's most high-profile marriages had gone through a prolonged and serious separation, one that both parties acknowledged had brought them to the edge of ending the relationship entirely. Will Smith, during the same episode, confirmed that the separation was real and mutual, stating that at that time he believed the relationship was effectively over. He also acknowledged that both of them had reached a point where they were done with each other. However, he did not provide detailed public confirmation of the exact boundaries or understandings surrounding Jada's relationship with Alsina. August Alsina, in earlier interviews in 2020, had presented his own account, stating that he believed he had Will Smith's blessing to pursue the relationship. Jada's framing on Red Table Talk differed slightly, emphasizing the separation rather than explicit permission. However, by the time of the July 2020 episode, Will and Jada had already reconciled. Things looked hopeful again. Life still moved on. Until that fateful night. The 2022 Oscars incident, March 27, 2022, Los Angeles. The 94th Academy Awards were underway at the Dolby Theater, a venue built for controlled spectacle and global broadcast precision. The night was designed as a return to normalcy for Hollywood after pandemic disruptions, with the Academy Awards positioned as both a celebration and a reset for the industry. The audience included nominees, presenters, and global stars seated in tightly structured rows under live broadcast scrutiny reaching millions worldwide. During the ceremony, comedian Chris Rock took the stage to present the Best Documentary Feature Award. In his scripted remarks, he made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, referencing the film G.I. Jane. The line was delivered as part of standard awards show comedy rhythm, where hosts and presenters often target visible traits in the room. What was not addressed in the joke itself was a key medical fact. Jada Pinkett Smith has publicly disclosed that she suffers from alopecia, a condition that causes hair loss and can lead to significant emotional and physical impact. Within seconds of the joke, the camera captured Will Smith laughing initially, perhaps reflexively. Moments later, his posture changed, and he walked onto the stage, unannounced, unscripted, and entirely outside the structure of the live broadcast. In full view of the global audience, he approached Chris Rock and struck him across the face, then turned and returned to his seat. The auditorium registered the moment in real time, but without immediate comprehension. Back in his seat, Smith shouted toward the stage, instructing Rock not to mention his wife again. And yet, at the center of the disruption, Chris Rock did not escalate. He remained standing, absorbed the impact, and within seconds regained control of the moment. Visibly startled but composed, he steadied himself and continued speaking, briefly acknowledging what had just happened with, "That was the greatest night in the history of television," before moving forward with the presentation. Rock's response was measured and controlled. He did not retaliate physically or verbally in any aggressive sense, nor did he abandon the stage. Instead, he completed his role as presenter. The ceremony continued, but the tone of the event had permanently shifted. Less than an hour after the confrontation, Smith was called to the stage again, this time as the winner of Best Actor for his performance in King Richard. The film, directed by Reynaldo Marcos Green, depicted Richard Williams, father of tennis champions Venus and Serena Williams. Smith's performance had been widely predicted to win, with a season of precursor awards building toward that outcome. When his name was announced, he walked on stage in the same venue where the earlier incident had occurred. His acceptance speech was emotional and extended beyond typical award acknowledgement. He referenced protecting his family, spoke about love, and invoked comparisons to Richard Williams, the character he portrayed. The speech occurred approximately 30 to 40 minutes after the slap. This was a live broadcast. Public reaction began during the ceremony itself, with commentary splitting in real time between shock, condemnation, and attempts at contextualization. Within hours, the incident dominated global news cycles, trending across platforms and becoming one of the most replayed award show moments in television history. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences initiated internal review procedures shortly after the broadcast concluded. In the days following the event, formal disciplinary action escalated. Smith issued a public apology to Chris Rock, acknowledging that his behavior was unacceptable. Chris Rock did not press charges, and the matter remained within institutional and public discourse rather than legal proceedings. However, the Academy proceeded with sanctions. Smith resigned voluntarily from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences before further disciplinary action could be finalized. He was later issued a 10-year ban from attending Academy events, including the Oscars ceremony itself. The professional consequences extended into production pipelines. Several projects associated with Smith experienced delays or reassessments in scheduling. Industry reporting indicated that studios became more cautious in timing releases and promotional strategies involving his name. However, not all ongoing work was halted. The film Emancipation, directed by Antoine Fuqua, had already completed production and was released later in 2022. The Bad Boys franchise resumed with Bad Boys: Ride or Die, released in 2024. His memoir Will, published in 2021 before the Oscars incident, was widely revisited afterward. Readers and commentators reinterpreted sections dealing with childhood trauma, compulsive performance, and emotional regulation through the lens of the 2022 event. However, Smith's public standing remains structurally divided. On one axis is his established legacy, on the other hand is the Oscars incident. Standing in between is a star whose one mistake cost him everything. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.